This is a little bit more of a fun, maybe slightly ranty video about just some of the absurdity that goes on in the workplace and some of the really insane advice that management consultants give out to make themselves more relevant. Man, I could go on for days. But listen, this is from the BBC, so again, not exactly like a little rinky-dink operation here. Firms urged to crack down on office football chat. Now keep in mind, I'm American. This is not football like the New England Patriots. This is football like soccer, right? So I don't know anything. I don't even know a soccer team to be to be quite frank. But basically like sports chat in the office. Don't talk about sports in the office. Come on. Let's see what they have to say. Chat about football or cricket in the workplace should be curtailed, a management body has warned, because football and cricket are the key drivers of dysfunctional office environments. Like, are you kidding me? I just did a video right before this about office gossip and spending time on things that don't support your goals, but at the same time, there's a balance to this. There's balance to everything. And sometimes when you keep your head down, you focus hard on what you're doing, you need to come up and take a little bit of a break every now and again. And sports for a lot of people, I mean, not for people like me, I don't really watch sports, but, for a lot of people, this is something that they can relate over. It's something they can chat over. It's not dramatic. It's not gossipy. It's just like, oh, here's something going on in the world that we all have an interest in. There's nothing nefarious going on here. It's just sports. But let's hear what they have to say. Chartered Management Institute head Anne Frank, I think that's pronounced Frank, said sports banter can exclude women and lead to laddish behavior, such as chats about sexual conquests. Like, come on. So again, like, I'm American. I don't really know the term laddish. My husband lived in England though for a little while, and he kind of explained it to me. He said it's more like bro culture, like it's like a dude or like, and I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of bro culture, but come on, to equate talk about sports banter in the office to like bro culture or laddish behavior and chats about sexual conquest. I'm not a fan of like discussing sexual stuff at work, but to say one can lead to the other, it's a little crazy. It's a little beyond the pale. A lot of women in particular feel left out, she told BBC's Today program. They don't follow these sports and they don't like being forced to talk about them or not being included. Listen, people have different interests. I don't watch sports at all. Do I take it as a personal offense in any environment that I'm in that I'm not included in the conversation about, basketball or baseball or whatever the heck else is going on? No. People have different interests at work, and just as, the men in the office, and mostly men, I mean, listen, women are involved in sports too. There are some women that I'm sure really like sports. Think about the big deal that the Women's World Cup was in the States, a year ago or whenever that was. So many women were into that. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. Maybe not a misnomer, but like a false statement to say that, women aren't going to be involved in this. A lot of women do watch sports. But even if they aren't, guess what? You can talk about other things. You can find your own groups that have your own interests and that are unique to this specific group, and those interests might exclude a lot of men who aren't interested in those things. There's nothing wrong with having different interests. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. Crazy town. I have nothing against sports enthusiasts or cricket fans. That's great. But the issue is many people aren't cricket fans. God knows I have no idea about cricket. Like, does anyone really understand the rules of cricket? Come on. She added, arguing bosses should crack down on sports banter. Of all the things that bosses should be dedicating their energy to doing, cracking down on sports banter does not even make the top 50 of those things. Listen, like, I do a lot of manager training. I train a lot of managers in a variety of different types of organizations. It is everything I can do to get them meeting weekly with their employees, to have open communication with their employees, to do goal setting in a way that's going to be intrinsically motivating, to give feedback in a way that people are going to receive, to understand the different work styles of your employees, to know how to direct and delegate to them, to understand how to coach your employees, to really develop their abilities, making sure they're aligned with what the organization needs. I could go on and on and on about things that should take a much greater priority than cracking down on sports banter. Are you serious? Of all the wastes of time? Come on. Miss Frank is concerned that discussing football and, for example, the merits of video-assisted refereeing can disproportionately exclude women and divide offices. It's a gateway to more laddish behavior. I really think that laddish is something we should make happen in the States. I'm just going to say it. And if it goes unchecked, it's a signal of a more laddish culture. God forbid people talk about sports on their break. It is very easy for it to escalate from a VAR talk and chat to slapping each other on the back and talking about their conquests at the weekend. I mean, come on, do we really think... I don't know, okay, side note. I don't know when I became the defender of men. I don't know when this happened, but I found myself in the position a lot lately of being that guy, or that gal, rather, that is going to defend men in the workplace from these stupid accusations. Do we really think that most men, I'm not talking about the exceptions, I'm talking about most men, do not have enough of a head about them to be able to refrain from talking about their sexual conquests at work? Come on. It makes no sense. Listen, I'm the type of woman who I just tend to enjoy hanging out with men more than I hang out with most women. It's a preference. I find it to be a more relaxing environment. I like the banter, whatever. It's just, I have nothing against most women, but that's just the way it is. I have never, in my almost 39 years, had a man in an office environment brag about his sexual conquest over the weekend to me. Not even if we were office BFFs, whatever. I mean, it just doesn't happen. That's crazy. What research does she have to say that talking about sports is going to lead to talking about sexual conquest? Makes no sense. Nevertheless, Miss Frank does not think that sports chatter should be banned, just moderated. Oh, so now we're only cracking down on some laddish behavior. Not all laddish behavior, just some laddish behavior. She said the good managers should be inclusive and ensure that everyone in their team feels comfortable. Yes, but that is not a reflection of whether or not people are talking about sports. That has nothing to do with whether or not people are talking about sports. There are so many things you need to do to make people feel comfortable, to enhance psychological safety on the team, that has nothing to do with this. It's crazy. And she should know better. And I'm being a little bit, maybe a little bit uppity on this video, but she should know better. She's a management consultant. Listen, she absolutely knows better. This is just to get her in the news. I'm sure she responded to some employer a request from a reporter for this type of information. The reporter wants to tell this type of story, and so she responded to help a reporter out request to get this type of story out there, to be the expert in this. I'm sure this is just a way to get her name out, because anyone that has spent any time working in businesses, specifically with training managers, knows that this is not a real problem. This is not real. This is made up in order for the news outlet to have a saucy headline that's going to get clicks. That's all it is. This is not a real problem. Okay? But sports journalist Jackie Oatley thinks that cracking down on sports chatter would be a terrible idea. Well, I mean, to be fair, sports journalists would, right? If you ban football chat or banter of any description, then all you're going to do is alienate people who want to communicate with each other. Yes, the sports journalist is the voice of reason. It would be so negative to tell people not to talk about sports because girls don't like it or women don't like it. That's far more divisive. I 100% agree. She said the sequel was to discuss sports in an inclusive way and to notice if people are blankly staring into space during the conversation. Well, So what if they are? Listen, like, you don't have a right to be included and to have every conversation that happens around you to be on a topic that interests you. And listen, sometimes you might get involved in conversations in the workplace that you think you have no interest in whatsoever, and it ends up being a really fun, engaging conversation. You learn something new, but there's no rule out there in any workplace that says every conversation that happens between every group of employees needs to be interesting to every person. If you are not interested in the conversation, remove yourself from it. Go focus on your work, number one. That's probably like the number one thing. Like, just don't engage in it. But if you really want to have conversations about topics that interest you with people, form your own groups, form your own clubs, find people who are interested in the same things that you are. This is not even a complicated problem to solve. This is something we should learn when we're little kids, not even when we get into the workplace. What's next? A majority of people responding to a LinkedIn post from the BBC and on Twitter appear to agree with Miss Oatley. So they agree with the sports journalist. Good. For former sports, gambling charities, and loneliness minister. Like UK has a loneliness minister? I have no idea what that means. Called the Charter Management Institute's a load of nonsense. Good for her. What a load of nonsense. All welcome to pop in for sports chat in this women's office. Good for you, Tracy. Let's see what other people have to say. Others agree with her on Twitter. I find her comments more offensive. I'm female and a huge football fan. Who is to say that women don't follow sports and can't be involved in conversations? I have plenty of banter in the office. Just another example of trying to cause drama when there is no need for it. Yes, Allison. Thank you. As a former female football and cricket fan, as a female football and cricket fan who engages in a lot of office football banter, I find her comments extremely sexist in suggesting women don't want to hear about football. I completely agree. Listen, women are not like this they're not like a hegemonist group that all think the same way, same as men. People have different interests. There are so many women who are interested in sports, and even if they're not, that's not a reason to ban conversation about sports in the office. Office manager Deborah Smythe worries that other topics such as Love Island I love Love Island. Listen, if you haven't watched Love Island, it is like the best. I think there was an American version this past year. I didn't really watch much of it, but like the UK version is like, it's the best. It's the best. EastEnders and Game of Thrones could also be sensitive sports chatters banned. Okay, this is actually a serious point. If you're going to ban sports chatter or banter, then what's stopping you from banning banter around any topic, any interest topic that people just happen to have conversations about on the water cooler, in the kitchen, or whatever? It makes no sense. Where does it end? It's just a slippery slope in which like everyone's going to be afraid to talk about anything in the office. This is part of how psychologically safe working environments get built. It's not just about people focusing on office stuff, work stuff all the time. That's a key part of it in building team resiliency is to have different attributes that they're focusing on in terms of their communication, their direction, their effort, all that stuff. That's a different video for a different day. But part of how people build that psychologically safe work environment is simply by being human, by expressing human interests, by understanding, what are you interested in? What are your thoughts on this? Having those conversations. Honestly, I think some of the best ways to build functional workplace relationships, I suggest this to people all the time, is go out, have a beer or whatever your drink of choice is, or a water if you don't drink, or a soda or whatever it is. Just get out of the office, kick back, and get to know each other as human beings. Like step number 1, if you can get your employees to see each other as human beings rather than kind of like these robotic things that we expect people to be when they're in the office, that is going to work wonders in terms of increasing group cohesion, increasing psychological safety, all those things. I personally think companies should not dictate what people talk about, as talking about it will alienate those, as not talking about about it will alienate those with similar interests. Where would it end? Banning people with children talking about them so as not to alienate people without children? Certainly not. That's a really fair point. I don't have kids. And to be blunt, like, I've never particularly cared about the conversations I've had with people about their kids in the office, but you have those conversations to get to know people and to know what they care about and to, again, see them as more full human beings rather than, a deep interest in whatever the topic is. It's not the point. Recruiter Peter Ferguson said, "I have seen managers and staff build a more direct bond over a shared love of sport, which has excluded those who don't share that interest." Then build the bond in another way. It doesn't have to, just because you build the bond with some people talking about sports, guess what? That doesn't negate the possibility of you building a bond with different people talking about different things. People who are interested in sports are not just only interested in sports. They probably have many varied interests. The answer is not to ban the conversation. It is to ensure managers and staff are trained to understand that those shared interests should not get in the way of management decisions and working collaboratively. Okay, I think I've made my point clear about my disdain for this article and this approach, and it's just like, my biggest problem with it is A, it's coming from a management consultant who should absolutely know better, but B, this is focusing in on something that is so inconsequential in the workplace. Unless people are getting in knockdown, drag-out fights because they like opposite sports teams and they can't get it in check, this is not something that any boss or any leadership team should put any energy into at all. And if you are putting energy into this, then what are you dropping the ball on? What things could you be doing as an executive, a boss, a leader, whatever? What things could you be doing that actually enhance the employee experience, that builds that team cohesion, that gets them to be comfortable collaborating with each other and expressing themselves to each other, that gets them to engage in positive two-way conversations with each other? That is a significantly bigger problem to group cohesion than talking about football or cricket or any other sport that might be the sport of the moment. Come on, guys, let's just have some common sense here. Please. Please, please. So I'd love to hear what you think. If you have an opinion about this, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, go ahead and leave a comment. Listen, and if you enjoyed this video, these videos are a little bit of a new experiment that I'm doing to try it out. If you enjoy this video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. You'll get a notification when I post new content. I'm really trying to post new content every single day during the week. Anyway, I take the weekends off because that's what you should do. I need my work-life balance too. But I am trying to post new content every day during the week. Subscribe to get those notifications. And if you like this specific video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up.